Welcome back to another video on the channel. Grand Slam tennis is finally back on Monday with the return of the US Open. Obviously we haven't had Grand Slam tennis since January. This year's Australian Open. You know that the French Open is due to be rescheduled to start following the conclusion of the US Open, and Wimbledon unfortunately had to be completely cancelled this year. It will be a very different Grand Slam, obviously no spectators at all. No Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer on the men's side, no Ashley Barty or Simona Halep on the women's side. But to have Grand Slam tennis back, 2 weeks of the best going at it, over 5 sets on the men's side is going to be fantastic. And on the WTA, there's many young talents mixed with older Grand Slam champions that'll create for a fantastic event. The Grand Slam events are the highlight weeks of my year. Wimbledon in particular being British, but I do enjoy covering the events on YouTube now and just watching them. Massive fan of the sport, and I thoroughly enjoy watching and covering them. So kicking off with the men's preview. I will be posting the women's preview tomorrow as well if you want to check that out. And I am recording this before the Cincinnati Open final between Djokovic and Raonic, just because I wanted to watch the match tonight. And I wanted to get this video out tonight, so if I don't refer to one of them as the winner of the Cincinnati Open, it's because it hasn't been played yet. So kicking things off, just looking at the highlight names in the men's draw. You've got Djokovic, Thiem, Daniel Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Zverev, Berrettini, Goffin, Cilic, Murray, Raonic and Roberto Bautista are good. Notable absentees, obviously Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, the two big ones. Nick Kyrgios, Gael Monfils, Fabio Fognini, Stan Wawrinka, Jo-Wilfried Tsonga and also Kei Nishikori. I believe Kei Nishikori did test positive for coronavirus. Did get tested again and thankfully tested negative, but decided that after a long breakout he didn't want to return over 5 sets in case of injury, so was due to return on clay, I believe, then hopefully move on to compete in the French Open. So just a quick summary of the event to start off with. I think the next gen have got extra motivation to sort of break through and grab that maiden Grand Slam title win. We've seen for many years the big three have dominated, and if not for the big three, it's been Andy Murray or Stan Wawrinka winning Grand Slams. And it's always the big question ahead of every Grand Slam, which young player is going to break through and break the mould and win a Grand Slam title. Will it be Medvedev? Will it be Tsitsipas? Will it be Alexander Zverev? And Medvedev's come closest to reaching the final of this event last year before losing to Rafa and Nadal. But I think without Rafa and Roger there, without Stan there, it's a massive opportunity for all the young guns, and I'm sure they'll be even more up for it than they usually are. But the same thing for Dominic Thiem. He's had to win a Grand Slam, has reached 3 finals, as I say, and without Roger and Rafa, it gives everybody extra motivation and makes the draw a lot easier. Obviously still a very tough event for anybody, and it'll be a fantastic achievement for whoever wins. But you've even got to throw Djokovic in the mix, extra motivation for him. He's chasing the Grand Slam list, obviously 3 behind Roger, 1 behind Rafa, and for him, knowing Roger or Rafa aren't there, it's again a fantastic opportunity, knowing that he has to just beat Stefanos Tsitsipas, the hardest player in his side of the draw, to reach the final. He's had a fantastic draw, Djokovic, which I'm sure again will have just give him added momentum, added motivation. Does bring added pressure, but I'm sure that won't faze Djokovic, and he'll be well on top of his game. So kicking things off, just looking through a few of the top players who'll be competing next week. Starting with Djokovic, I did just quickly mention about his draw. He's been very lucky, I think, with the draw, avoiding both Medvedev and Dominic Thiem until the final. He'll be hoping them to get knocked out on the other side, or at least face each other in the semi-finals and have a marathon match. Stefanos Tsitsipas, as I said, is probably the biggest threat on Djokovic's side of the draw, just looking at it from an outside perspective, but you don't know really who's been working the hardest in lockdown, who can compete physically over the 7-match tournament. And for Tsitsipas, he's only made that one big run at the Slam, reaching this year's semi-final at the Australian Open. To Djokovic, he'd be massive favoured if he was to face off against Stefanos in the semis. Djokovic, you can't really say a bad word about him. He's had the perfect year up to now, albeit we haven't had a great deal of tennis, but still he's looked fantastic in the events we've had. He's unbeaten in 2020. As I say, I am recording this, so if he gets beat off Raonic, I have jinxed him. he's a player that's chasing greatness. He's chasing to become the best ever. He wants all the record books, all the titles that he can get. And it's a huge opportunity without Rafa and Roger in the draw. He will know that, the fans will know that, the media will know that. There's added expectation, but ultimately the draw's a lot easier than he probably expected it to be, which can only be a good thing for Djokovic. It'll increase his intensity and motivation to win the event, knowing it's a great chance to cut the gap, and I'm sure he'll be bang at it. Hopefully the neck and stomach injury don't hinder his chances, but I'm sure they won't. Right now he's the best player in the world on a hard court, any court really. Rafa on clay is probably still bang there, but Djokovic on a hard court or on grass is without doubt the best player in the world. There's no really negatives to his game. I think his serve's improving as the years progress. The introduction of Goran Ivanisevic into his team, I think, has done fantastic things to his serve, keeping the points shorter as he gets older, putting less pressure on his body. He's serving as well as he has in his career, in my opinion. He's got the most reliable and consistent stroke in the world in his double-handed backhand. He's got the flexibility, the defence, great move around the court. He's the best returner of serve ever, which will come in handy on a quick hard court against the likes of a Pelka, Isner, Raonic, Berrettini. You're going to need to return very well. That's something Djokovic can do. He can really neutralise the serve and almost turn that serve into a negative. The harder it hit comes at him, the harder he hits it back, and it immediately puts the server under pressure. He's got that fantastic record in Grand Slams, in particular in finals. He's got a very good win percentage in finals. He's the most experienced player in the draw, winning 17 Grand Slams. He's fit, experienced, ticks every box really. There's nothing that can put you off Djokovic in winning this event. It is interesting that he's won 8 Australian Open titles and just 3 in the US. But I think I've always said that Djokovic puts so much into the first half of the year. He likes to kick off the year with a win in Melbourne. He's always got a massive task on his hands to beat the likes of Thiem or Rafa on clay in the French Open, and then Wimbledon. We know he's won the last few Wimbledons, and the US comes as the last Grand Slam of the year. I think by that time he's just sort of burnt out, having probably reached the final of the previous 3 events. It does put a lot of pressure on the body, but he hasn't had to do it this year. We've had no Wimbledon and no French Open yet, so he's been able to fully prepare and rest up for the US. I'm sure he's ready to make a huge claim for the title in Flushing Meadows. Moving on to a player who's probably the second favourite in the draw, Dominic Thiem, and he suffered a shock defeat in Cincinnati Open and played probably the worst match I've seen Dominic Thiem play in a long time. Very unlike Dominic Thiem, trying to use the slice backhand rather than just like he usually does, clean down the line. Trying to serve and volley, which is something I haven't seen a lot of Thiem. He didn't do much success with it. And just a very, very strange performance from Dominic Thiem. Hopefully it was just a blip and just an off day, and that he comes into the US Open in full flow. He knows he's the second best player in the tournament. The results back that up, reaching 3 Grand Slam finals, pushing Djokovic all the way to this year's Australian Open final. He's more experienced than all the next gen. He's been closer, as I say, to winning Grand Slams than the likes of Medvedev, Tsitsipas and Zverev. Thiem's a player, until last week, I thought it improved drastically on hard courts in the past 2 years. You can see he's really analysed his game. He moves much better now, strikes the ball a lot better. I think he's more aggressive than what he used to be, which is suiting him. And yeah, he pushed Djokovic very hard at the Australian Open final this year. I think with a little bit better game management, I think his forehand let him down in pivotal moments in that match. But you've got to remember he's up against Djokovic, who's an 8-time Grand Slam champion in Australia. So it's no easy task. But Thiem led 2-1 in that match, and I think on another day had a few bigger points going his way. He could have closed out that win. That'll come with winning experience, it'll come with maturity, and it'll come with winning a Grand Slam title one day. And once you know how to do it once, it's a lot easier to repeat. I think the first Grand Slam is always a difficult one, and I'm sure Dominic Thiem's time will come. He's up against, he's been in the 3 hardest finals he could possibly be in, I think, in the history of the sport. Against Novak Djokovic in Australia, and at Rafael Nadal twice in the French Open. You don't get any harder finals than that. So to say he's got a bad record in finals would be very harsh. He's great account of himself in all three finals against, some of the world's best ever tennis players. Yeah, he's solid all round. He's got a fantastic game. His fitness is probably his biggest asset. I think he's arguably the fittest player in the world. Dominic Thiem, how much he trains off court and how much he lives for tennis, and the marathon matches suit him. 5-set deciders won't phase Thiem. He's, as I say, he's one of the fittest guys on tour, and he's certainly not a player that will be struggling at the back end of a Grand Slam for fitness. Daniil Medvedev reached the finalist event last year before losing in a thriller to Rafael Nadal. Looked like he was going to break the mould and come through for the next gen group, but Rafa used again all his experience and all his guile and fight and determination to come back and win that one. And I think Medvedev was dead on his feet by the end. Rafa ran away with that fifth set in the end, and for Medvedev, he'll have analysed that performance, looked at how he could perhaps manage the match better during the match. I think he really struggled in that fifth set once Rafa found his stride in the forehand, and Medvedev couldn't really do a lot about it. I don't think he had a lot left in the legs, but he's a player that'll really suits the hard courts. He's got a massive serve, he's aggressive, he counter punches on the defence, he likes the short points. He's always been sort of tipped, I think, as the most likely from the next gen group to win that first Grand Slam out of himself, Tsitsipas and Zverev. I did think Medvedev was poor against Roberto Bautista the other day. He played very well in the first set when the match was on his terms, when he was serving well and being aggressive and getting the short ball. But as soon as Bautista got sort of changed up his game, came into the net more, changed the pace, didn't allow Medvedev on the short ball to come into the court. Medvedev did really struggle, losing the match eventually in 3 sets, and that'll be sort of worrying signs. I'm sure players like Dominic Thiem and Djokovic watched on and saw the vulnerable side of Medvedev and saw that if you have got variety in your game and you can keep on the move and keep him batting the court, trying to hit winners from defensive positions, then he is vulnerable to that. He's still a young, fairly inexperienced player, so he's going to have chinks in his armour. But I think Bautista got done very well to expose them, and it did show that Medvedev does have his vulnerabilities. And another player, Stefanos Tsitsipas, a huge talent, a threat to everybody in 3-set matches with this hitting power he's got. Unorthodox. If he's on a hitting day, Tsitsipas, he's capable of beating anybody in the world, as he showed at the ATP Tour Finals last year. Just hit through everyone at that event. Nobody could really stop him on a golden day. As I say, he's incredibly hard to neutralise. Powerful on both forehand and backhand. Backs it up with that monster serve that he's got. But over 5 sets, I think it's a different story. He's reached the semi-final of the Australian Open this year, but other than that, he hasn't really made any decent ones at a Grand Slam. He is still very young, and it is incredibly difficult when you're playing players with a lot more experience. But I just feel over 5 sets he makes too many unforced errors. He's got quite a risky game. Tsitsipas, it's a big game. He's always aggressive. He doesn't change up that style much either. He goes out on his sword. He goes out hitting. And I think while he's making them errors, he's going to struggle to beat the top 10 players over 5 sets. If he's making 40, 50, 60 unforced errors in a game, you can't gift that many points away to top 10 players. He reached the 4th round of the Australian Open, which was his best previous result before reaching this year's semi-final. But again, until he improves that consistency, keeps the ball in the court more, then I just can't see him ever reaching a final or winning a Grand Slam. But he's a very young player. Everybody was like that really until he realises that he needs that consistency to beat the likes of Thiem and Djokovic. Then it's not going to happen for him. But he's 3 years younger than Medvedev, he's 2 years younger than Zverev, and he's still very young. But from what he's shown so far, over 3 sets, he's a danger and one of the best players in the world and a fantastic young talent. But for Grand Slam tennis, I'm not sure he's got the consistency in his game yet to really challenge the top players. And another player similar to that is Alexander Zverev. Threat on all surfaces. Arguably has the best Grand Slam results in total of the next gen group. 2 French Open quarterfinals, semi-final of the Australian Open, 2020. At 6'6", he has a massive serve, similar to Tsitsipas, strong in the backhand, but would like to add more consistency to his game over time, which is again vital in 5-set matches. For Zverev, you do have to worry about that forehand and second serve. I mean, we saw it against Andy Murray last week when he's serving for the match and threw in 3 double faults, threw in 2 more double faults in the deciding game to throw the match away, and it was very worrying signs. We've talked about this for the last 18 months that his forehand and second serve needs serious work, and it just doesn't seem to be happening for Zverev. The forehand, I think last week 20 unforced errors in one match. I think it was 10 double faults against Murray, and it's just too many. In a 5-set match, you're looking at 15, 16 double faults, and again, up against the likes of Thiem and Djokovic, you need to push them, you need to wear them down, you need to be consistent, and making that amount of errors and having a stroke that's that vulnerable is going to get exposed. Thiem and Djokovic are players that will just expose that straight away, constantly playing the forehand, constantly keeping them on the run on that side, and you'd have no confidence in Zverev counteracting that really with the recent performances. Zverev's not the quickest on the court, obviously being 6'6", as again players like Thiem and Djokovic who have variations. David Goffin, Bautista Agut are capable of changing up their games. They can expose Zverev by making him move around the court, use slices to keep the ball low and turn away, which he struggles to do with. And yeah, it's an interesting one with Zverev. He came through when he was 18, 19, looked like the next big thing, and his career hasn't really progressed. As same as Tsitsipas and Medvedev, he's a very young player, but these have been problems in his game for the last year or two, and they don't seem to be getting rectified, or his forehand doesn't seem to be becoming any more reliable. His second serve becomes a massive struggle. I watched him the other day against Andy Murray, and one of his second serves he's trying to hit 140 mile an hour down the middle as if it was a first serve, and by the end of the game he's trying to roll it in, still missing it long. So it doesn't seem like he's got a plan or a real plan B in that second serve. He's just sort of hitting it hoping it goes in, but that's not going to work for him in the long run. Marin Cilic, although he did have a titleless 2019, he dropped out of the World Top 20. Definitely the most disappointing year of his career for a long time. He is always a threat in Grand Slams. Nobody really predicted Cilic to win that Grand Slam back in 2014. Also reached the final of the Australian Open in 2018 against Djokovic, but he's a player that's always sort of gone against the record book. If he turns up, he serves well, hits the forehand. He's got that championship winning experience, as I say, which would count for a lot in big pressure matches against the next gen group in particular. He's always there, and while Cilic is there in a fast hard court, you've always got to give him the respect, because he can turn up on any given day and serve and hit the forehand, and he's going to be very difficult to stop. You would expect players like Medvedev and Tsitsipas and Zverev to sort of improve past Cilic now. He's approaching his mid-30s, and I do think the next gen group have probably got better all-round games than Cilic, but he's always a threat, and a player to win a Grand Slam is always a threat in the draw. Milos Raonic, I didn't initially have him down as one of the players to watch, but what a week he's had in Cincinnati. Again, another player that dropped down the rankings in 2019, had a disappointing year, but beat Tsitsipas in Cincinnati. May well have beat Djokovic by the time you see this video, but he's had a fantastic week. The serve is absolutely huge that he's got. We've all seen it time and time again over the years, but seems to be becoming more and more consistent as the years progress. His forehand is just a match winner, produces it at the biggest moments, very rarely misses it inside out. Just a fantastic weapon that if he gets onto it, there's nobody in the world really stopping with it. It's difficult to keep him off it. He runs around it very well, hits it from all around the court, and he can hit winners from pretty much anywhere. And also his double-handed backhand is becoming, his rallying shot, it's become more and more reliable. He's capable of rallying with players like Tsitsipas now, and then waiting for the opportunity to open up on the forehand side. But yeah, he's becoming more and more solid all around. I think he's got a very consistent game. I think out of the big servers, he's probably the best of them. You know, he's got the most variety. I don't think you can call Milos Raonic a one-dimensional player. You know, he's very solid at the net, and I think he's pretty much got everything there. On a quick hard court, a player that's so mentally strong like Raonic is. And he does frustrate opponents. You know, you could see Tsitsipas getting frustrated, not getting looking at the serve, and after he lost that opening tie break, Raonic really sensed his opportunity. You could see Tsitsipas was down and a bit defeated after losing the first set, and he got the early break. And once Raonic gets the early break, the writing's really on the wall. You know, all you need to do is serve well, make a good amount of first serves, and he's very difficult to stop. You know, over a 5-set match, if you know you're going to be looking to beat Raonic once. So good luck to people playing tie breaks against Milos, but he does have a very good record in them due to that serve again. And you know, he's got a baton to make a big run following this form. Other notable players in the draw, if I talked about everybody individually, we'll be here forever. So yeah, David Goffin, such a clean strike of the ball, always there in Grand Slams, reaching the 4th and 5th round. You know, fantastic on both sides. Very solid all-round game. Is sort of up against it with his size, but he's got lots of variations. He moves players around the court. He's incredibly quick and fit, and yeah, Goffin's a player that's always capable of making a quarter-final, semi-final run. Fantastic player to watch if you are watching tennis for the first time next week. Tuning into one of Goffin's matches for sure. Matteo Berrettini bounced onto the scene last year, young Italian. Similar to Raonic and Cilic, got the massive serve and forehand, although would like to become a little bit more consistent, I would believe. Andy Murray, you kind of forget Andy Murray, you know, won this event all those years ago, won 2 Wimbledons, 2 Olympic golds. Just to see Andy back competing at the Grand Slam is going to be fantastic. You know, at a point we thought his career was over. I thought he looked great last week in Cincinnati. You know, played very well against Zverev, although he did throw the match away. You know, Murray competed very well. And I thought he had, you know, he did. He played fantastically well. You know, he got dismissed pretty convincingly by Raonic, and I do worry for Murray that after 2 or 3 long matches, his body's just not going to hold up yet. I think over time, you know, he might regain that fitness and, you know, how to manage his body better during tournaments. But, you know, playing back-to-back matches he played in Cincinnati was very difficult. He'd be looking to win the first 2 or 3 rounds in straight sets, conserve as much energy as possible. But, you know, I still see Murray beating top 16, top 10 players, but it's just whether he's got enough left in the gas tank at that stage of the tournament to compete. But never write him off, because the heart and determination to have even Murray be on court at this stage just shows you, you know, how hard he's worked. You know, a lot of his career did look over. He looked down and out, playing with a metal hip, and he's still there competing and, you know, charging for the ball. And we all know what Andy's like. You can never write off a player with that much talent and heart. And also Roberto Bautista Agut, what a week he had in Cincinnati. You know, beating the top players. Got great variety to his game, incredibly fit. A player that's very, very underrated, I believe. And, you know, if players like Medvedev and Zverev and Tsitsipas do have off days, you know, Bautista Agut will be bang there, fighting away. And yeah, just a great player all round. Another player like Goffin, if you are tuning in tennis for the first time next week, then make sure to tune in to Bautista Agut. He does play some ridiculous shots and points, and the speed he's got is frightening around the court. But finally, just my verdict for the event. I don't think it'll come as any surprise. I'm going to play it safe and say Djokovic wins. I do think there'll be some tough tests along the way. You know, he has struggled with that neck injury, and he wasn't great in that performance against Roberto Bautista Agut, but he's just got the experience. You know, he's chasing greatness. He's the best player in the world. It's a great opportunity to cut the gap between himself, Rafa and Roger. I just think the next gen are all too inconsistent to beat a player like Djokovic at the moment. With time, I'm sure they'll get closer. Maybe he's beat him later in his career, but for now, the form all stacks towards Djokovic. Thiem is a live danger for sure. He's a clear second favourite. He's a level ahead, I believe, of the next gen group. He pushed Djokovic in that Australian Open final, and I'm sure he'll have analysed that, came up with tactics and ways of improving if he was to reach that stage of the match again. If one of the next gen are to break through and cause an upset, then I think it's important that they breeze through to the quarter-final stage. I think often we've seen in Grand Slams before that they've struggled in the first few rounds and playing 5-set matches and playing 4 and 5 hours, and then by the time they reach the quarter final and face the top players, they're sort of dead on their feet after 3 or 4 sets, and just sort of give the matches away. You know, the more experienced players know how to manage their bodies. They know how important it is to breeze them opening rounds in an hour and a half, 2 hours. But yeah, that's what I believe the next gen have to start cruising through the opening rounds to conserve as much energy as possible for facing the likes of Thiem and Djokovic. The curveball could be losing to a big server on a quick court for Djokovic. You know, I've talked about how good he is with that return of serve, but you just never know with a player like Cilic or Raonic. If they do have an incredible serving day, 70, 80 or 90% first serves, then it'll make it incredibly tough for anybody. But overall conclusion is just Djokovic is a huge favourite in my pick. I don't think it'll be completely straightforward, as a lot of people are suggesting, and there'll no doubt be some strange results throughout the tournament, as there always is, and there's always some upsets and classic matches. But I'm just looking forward to Grand Slam tennis being back, and I'm sure it'll be a fantastic one. But my women's preview will be coming out tomorrow on the channel, and then we kick off on Monday, and I'll be producing videos every day throughout the event, just talking about what happened on that day and looking ahead to the day after. So if you do want to follow my coverage of the US Open, I'll leave the link to me Twitter as well in the description, and do subscribe to the channel. But thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Oh, and also, if you do have your opinion on who you think will win the event, do comment in the comments below. I'm always interested to hear what other people think. But yeah, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on tomorrow's video.